NJ.com and the Heldridge Hotel. Welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights. With your host, Steve Politi, and Rutgers insider Brian Fonseca. Let's start shopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rant. It's going to be more like the Rutgers resignation, the Rutgers. Welcome back to the Rutgers. That's kind of how I feel, folks. I got to be honest with you. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the Wire. I'm excited about that. We'll see why in a minute if you're not as online as we are. Talk about the coaching staff. We'll have an entire basketball podcast preview for tomorrow. If you guys are driving down to the game, you'll have an entire listening our thoughts on the hoop season separate of this. We just wanted to make sure they're two separate things since we do have a lot to talk about football. But mostly, Brian, I got to tell you, my outrage keg is tapped. I am like, I got an email from a longtime reader. It's like, well, you call them out for this. This is unacceptable. I'm like, just worn out. I'm like eroded. I'm like a rock on a beach. There's nothing left. It's just it's gone now. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's the year. I think it's just not just this football season. I think it's just the weight of this entire year to go from Hobbs to the basketball, blow up disappointment to the protracted, ridiculous AD search to now this. It's just sort of like, just tired. There you go.
Well, I have two big picture things to go off. There's just so much to think about when you don't want to think about the current reality they're all facing here. Think about what you felt like about Rutgers sports 18 months ago. Just think 18 months ago what things were like. Dylan Harper's committed to Rutgers. Ace Bailey's committed to Rutgers. Rutgers has a senior-laden team coming back against the easiest schedule they will ever face in the Big Ten. The programs, both of them, felt like they were ascending. You felt like you were about to enter the most promising year of Rutgers athletics history. The athletic director, who behind the scenes everyone kind of knows was dogging it, still had the public perception where it looked like he was actually doing his job.
He was the most tenured AD in Big Ten at the time. He was. Yes.
There was so much positive. And now, I wish I looked up which Adam Sandler movie this is, but I know it's an Adam Sandler movie. Rob Schneider, they're talking to a crowd. He's in a crowd or whatever, and he goes, "Oh no, we suck again." And that's the feeling at Rutgers because everything, pretty much, the football team, I wrote this morning, is one of the worst power conference teams in the country. They're not quite Boston College. They're not quite the Ash level era, right? Let's not exaggerate that much, but they have 4 wins. One of them is to the worst FCS team in the country. Another one is to maybe the worst power conference team in the country. And I am reminded, if I had to compare where we are sitting now to a previous Rutgers era, this feels very 2017-ish, where the football team practically has no chance every time it takes the field, right? The basketball team is going to try to steal games by being a plucky upstart that plays defense and overcome a massive talent gap every time they take the floor. And it feels like all of the work and the progress that they've shown at any point in the last decade is kind of dissipated, and we're back at square one with every major Rutgers sport at this point.
Yeah, you know who else I think is feeling it? Greg Schiano. And I wasn't there. You were there. Tell me if I'm misreading the room based on watching your clips. And again, like a press conference with you and Fooch after you get your doors blown off in Champaign. I can't imagine it's like you're really not. There's not going to be a lot of enthusiasm that, generally speaking, you could bring to that room. But he just looked tapped too. He just kind of looked like I don't know if he's been told not to say the things he always says, but he's just kind of run out of things to say. He knows he can't say we'll get there. He knows no one wants to hear excuses about the injuries. He knows he played the NIL card once. You can't play the NIL card after a game. You lose. You just can't do it. So it's just sort of like, I don't know. Got to coach better. Got to play better. Got to perform better. It's kind of like the same tired stuff.
There's nothing he could say. The only thing he could say is we suck. He's not going to say that, obviously, because 1, he doesn't believe it, right? And as he shouldn't. And 2, I've never heard a coach say that ever, right? So there's nothing. I couldn't really tell you his mood because when I'm the only person in the press conference alongside Fuchs, and I'm focused on asking questions that I won't get massacred for on Twitter afterwards for not asking him the hard questions. And I couldn't really gauge his mood that much, but yeah, he seemed down as he should be. They're a 1-5 football team in the Big Ten, and they just got crushed by Illinois. I mean, it wasn't even close. The defense could not stop them. Could not stop them. The offense could not cash in on any progress. The quarterback, that's their best in a decade, just was completely off. They couldn't run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing positive to take from that. And so, you put in a hard week's work against Purdue, and you get the win, barely. You put in probably another hard week's worth, and then you get crushed by Illinois, and now you're facing the barrel of having to win 2 games in the last 3 games, with one of them being Ohio State, to make a bowl game. And I can understand why he's saying, indirectly, I don't know if he meant this exactly, but he's saying he can't wait until the offseason to, evaluate this thing and move forward, because I think that's where everyone is now. I don't think anyone is, I wrote that this Maryland game is do or die for a bowl bid, and I don't think anyone really cares. Yeah. Everyone's kind of excited for the offseason to move, turn the page.
The one thing, and this is a general observation about like where this program is. This program does not, for all the talking about the chop, we're going to chop the moment, we're going to chop. This program does not handle adversity well at all. I mean, and then that game is a perfect example to me. It's just, it doesn't capitalize on situations. It gets punched in the face and it falls down. I just think about this mantra and all of these slogans. None of that stuff matters when when you get into tailspin like that. And it's funny because this is where the chop started, was 20 years ago on a trip to Illinois. And I was thinking about this, the juxtaposition that we're still doing the same, we're going to do, that's what you do. You chop you when things go wrong. I don't sense a lot of that resolve. I don't sense a lot of that, I think players just get hit with the first thing that happens. Yeah. Okay. That's it. I don't know. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I'm not going to, it's hard to gauge that exactly, but I just think that it's hard to continue to convince yourself that the next play is the play you're going to make a play when they haven't made a play in 400 snaps defensively, right? And whenever they do make a play as a defense, the offense can't cash in. When the offense is scoring, the defense can't get a stop. I can understand, as much as you could build mental fortitude as a program and within the players, it'd be very, it can wear you down when you give up 5 touchdowns in 6 plays, when the opponent is going for it on every 4th down, when they're running trick plays and kind of getting into the end zone. It's just, the thing I would say though is, this is not a Greg Schiano defense in multiple ways. They're not aggressive. Like, they're not, forget getting to the quarterback and pass rushing, right? They don't hit hard. They're not, they seem indecisive. And again, that's probably some code. It just doesn't seem like a Greg Schiano defense where, even if you give up a big play or two, you're there. They make you feel that you feel like they're there, and it just doesn't. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of losing the way to explain it.
You're totally right about them. It's not hitting hard, not aggressive, not physical. They get beat at the line of scrimmage. They get beat, and they're smart. That's the other thing I want to say. They make the same mistakes. And the big thing that I come back to a lot too, it's guys that they were counting on to be the leaders of this thing. And I don't want to call out players necessarily, but like, I think of, you brought Jerome to the media days in Chicago. He's been very disappointing as a player. You spend all this money on Weaver. Like, okay, like what's he done? Like Elad, guys you were counting on, you would expect that they were these were priority players at important positions who are just not living up to the expectations. And you can blame injuries. And I know they lost some key guys, but it's not like, it's not like you lost Tyreen Powell last year in the defense. That's the heart and soul of the defense, and they couldn't recover. A lot of these guys are still out there, Brian, right? I mean, this is like, these are the dudes. These are your dudes. You brought these dudes to the fight on week 1, and here you are, in week 9, and it's still the same stuff.
Jabomi's having a rough year, especially in coverage. He's given up 17 catches on 18 targets. And some of that is like, those numbers sound ugly, but the overall defensive numbers are reaching all-time levels, like all-time bad levels. I wrote a bunch of them in my story, and Mike Broadbent had a great stat on Twitter today. They are on pace to give up more yards per play than any defense in the Big Ten this century. They're at 8 yards per play giving up. Like, we're talking about
right?
a historically bad defense.
Wow.
And as ugly as the numbers are, the uglier part is like watching them play sometimes. Like, sometimes it's guys not knowing where to be. And even I have this clip here I posted in our story. Like, sorry, let me remove this. I'll never get the StreamYard thing right. But there are guys running into each other, tackling each other in this play.
Oh my
Boom,
God.
2 Rutgers defenders tackle each other. Later on, there's another view of the play. 2 guys tackle each other. Another instance of 2 Rutgers defenders tackling each other. I mean, they make the play ultimately, but it can't be great to have 2 of your starting defensive players tackling each other. In the touchdown right here, I want you to watch Jabomi and Jacoby Henderson on the outside, what they do. So there's some motion, and then 2 Rutgers defenders run into each other, leaving the Illinois receiver wide open, right? Just and then the
if
last
you're listening
one is,
on Apple, this is I think this is what is it, the first touchdown or the second touchdown?
That is the first touchdown.
First touchdown.
This is the third touchdown. I'm sorry if it's the image might be a little glitchy, but here essentially they run a rub route, which is not uncommon, right? I'm not going to blame Rutgers for getting beat on a rub route, but it's the reason why you have 2 Rutgers defenders essentially getting screened, and that's why there's another wide open receiver for a touchdown. So my point being, the defense isn't just playing badly, it's just making comically bad errors. Again, maybe I just don't watch enough college football, but have you ever seen 2 defensive backs tackle each other on multiple times in the same drive? I can't remember the last time I've seen that.
No. And then that comes, absolutely. And it comes back to the same, it'd be one thing if it happened like once, you're like, okay, well, it's football, but coming off the Purdue game when we saw this stuff. I mean, we've seen this stuff all season. They give them 750 yards to Oregon. It's just like it's repeating the same mistakes. It's jumping off sides in that one drive. It's mental mistakes, physical mistakes, running the wrong direction, not knowing where to be, not setting the edge. It is missed tackles. It is fundamental football. I think that's the biggest problem. We're talking a lot about NIL and the money and the resources, not having good enough players, not being able to get guys out of the portal. Well, how about just tackling? Like, how about just being in the right spot? How about not knocking your own teammate over? I mean, this is just stuff that you're like, I don't know, how much money do you need to be able to know how to defend a rut play? I mean, I come back to it like this is simple. Like the first touchdown, if you guys didn't watch it, it's just simple running back coming out of the backfield. This is like just throw and catch.
I've been killed for being an NIL apologist in the comment section of multiple videos now, and I guess I would want to say that it's not either or. It's not black or white. It would be silly to blame everything on NIL, and that's not what I've been doing.
Right.
But it would also be just as silly to say NIL has nothing to do with this, and Rutgers just has to coach better and play harder, and all the issues will be fixed. Right?
Yes.
Bradley Weaver is not going to move faster, no matter how much you work on him in practice. Right? So when he has an open lane to sack the quarterback and get a safety on the first drive, and he's a step too slow, and then Altmaier connects with a receiver to get a first down and move the sticks. That's not NIL, right? That's just the player's too slow. But there's no amount of coaching that's going to fix that, right? So, when you have such little NIL, you have to hit on every player you get, and every player you get that you lose is impactful. So you lose 2 of your defensive tackles that you get in Doug Bluey for the season, and Daryl DeGoey has missed 5 straight games, I think. And then the defensive ends, Eric O'Neill's been okay. Probably not as good as anyone hoped for, but
pretty
he's been
good
fine.
in the Illinois game. Give him credit. He played a good game against Illinois. Absolutely.
He had a good game, and he had a great post game with me. I do appreciate his honesty. He's a real character, and I asked him like, what is going wrong with the defense, and he said probably everything. It's been a problem all year, and it's still a problem, and I appreciate that honesty, right? But he did say that you can't just pack it in and say, all right, guys, we're not good. Let's just quit the rest of the season. But it's nice to have someone acknowledge the reality that we're all seeing, that things are not going great. And again, it's so bad that I think it's going to take literally a perfect offensive game to win any of these games. Yeah. Right. Like it's the only reason they beat Purdue is because Purdue is really bad. So now you go to Maryland, the game you have to win to make a bowl game. I just don't see Rutgers stopping them defensively. You're going to need a big game from the offense that had a bit of a I wouldn't say a bit of they had one of their worst games of the season against Illinois.
Yeah, and the offense in a minute. Do want to make one more point on the NIL thing and the money thing, and it's important because I do think we bring it up a lot, and I wonder if we bring it up more than are they talking about this in other college podcasts? Like, is there someone in? Are they talking about this constantly in some SEC plays? Well, Mississippi State, we had the money no one miss had. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't listen to it. I just know we talk about it a lot because it is a real issue. I do want to say though, it's not like they had $0, right? This is the first rev share season, and this football team spent at least $16 million on players. That is from the university. That is rev share money, right? And I don't know the breakdown. I have no idea. Like, I'd love to see the payroll. I would love to, but we don't have the access to that. We are guessing. And that is the money. That is the money from the university. It's the rev share. The NIL part is separate. And that money was not zero. I don't know what the money was. We believe it to be lowest in the Big Ten, or among the lowest in the Big Ten. And that's where programs get an edge, right? This is where Oregon has a lot of money here in this category, above and beyond the rev share money, where they can go out and they can get guys in the portal easier. And I know Rutgers targeted some guys that were picked up by those programs. I understand all that. But that doesn't mean they didn't whiff on a bunch of players. Like the evaluations were just wrong. I mean, they went into the portal. They thought they were filling needs. They made mistakes. And I think that's when you're in a situation and you only have X amount of money, you're like the Pittsburgh Pirates here of you can't make mistakes in free agency. And I think that's what happened too. So for everyone who's screaming out, you talk about LA how much, I understand what you're saying. And that would be my counterpoint to that argument, just to put that out there.
My one line on NIL, just to kind of wrap it up. NIL helps explain what's happening. It does not excuse what's happening, because no matter how much you trail your opponents, it should not be this bad. It should not
write
be
that down. Hang on. Doesn't.
I'll clip it to you and send it so you could just kind of send it over to everyone.
You're such a good friend. Thank you. All right. Now you're moving on to the offense, and we should, because I wasn't surprised by you can't be surprised by the defense at this point. I was surprised by the offense, and I wonder what happened to the Ethan Kalikmanis we saw early in the season. I was thinking about that first Big Ten game against Iowa, when that offense hummed down the field and scored 3 touchdowns in their first 3 possessions. And you're like, oh my God, we're going to drop 49 against Iowa. And it didn't happen. And they lost the game 38-28. And, all right, regressed to the mean a little bit. But now he just doesn't look like the same quarterback. And a lot of these things, overthrowing receivers, just making a lot of mistakes. And I don't know if it's pressure, if it's, Strong was out there, so he had targeted 14 times, got 6 receptions. He's not 100%, but he was a part of the offense. You have both your receivers out there. You have both your running backs out there. I don't know. It's just a bad game, but it seems like it's been a couple now where he's just not the same guy.
He had a rough game. I mean, just overthrowing guys, clear miscommunications, which just has not been happening this year. And most of them were to Ian Strong. One can argue that he hasn't practiced much, if not at all, over the last 2 weeks. I don't think you forget how to run a route in 2 weeks. And I think they built that connection over, the season and the offseason. I just don't think that explains the massive gap in just clear miscommunication. I don't know if he only got pressured 10 times on 50 dropbacks. That's one of the lower of the year. Yeah, that's PFF's numbers, so take that for what it's worth. But that's the lowest of the year. One could think maybe it's because of a season long getting pressured that he feels the need to rush, but I'm not sure I buy that either. I just think he had a bad game. And I think that there is some pressure knowing that you have to have a great game. You have to excel every time you take the field to give yourself a chance at any point. But they're just not converting in the red zone. Another game where they get into the red zone inside the opposing 25-yard line and they just don't cash in. And another point about being perfect, right? Like KJ Duff had another solid game, but to me, what sticks out are the 2 plays he didn't convert. I have them both here. Let me see if I can make this work. Okay. So this is a first down on the second drive of the game. This should be a touchdown. Ethan Kalikmanis hits him in the hands. It's not a perfect throw. It's not a perfect throw.
He bangs. You can see if you're watching. He bangs his fist on the turf. He could you could tell. All right, yeah, it's in his hands. That's a drop. Totally.
You see this replay is the best one. It touches his hands. You got to catch that. KJ Duff. We talked about him being one of the better receivers in the Big Ten. You got to catch that. And then this one is even worse. This one would convert a first down into inside the red zone. It's 7-3 at this point. There's 6 minutes left in the first half. Rutgers would take its first lead, and instead, Rutgers stalls from here. They kick a field goal to make it 7-6, and then in the last 5 minutes of the second half or the first half, Illinois scores 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
and 2 touchdowns in 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's beating himself up over that too. Puts his hands in his hands in his helmet. He's been. I mean, it's tough. He has been so good this year, and it's always. It's not just good like routine catches. He's got every jump ball. Maybe those 2 catches were too easy for him. He needed to have a 6'1" cornerback hanging off his waist. I go back to this a lot. Like it was like basketball season when you blame Dylan Harper. Like I have a hard time blaming KJ Duff for anything. I'm just like not. All right, drop the pass, overcome it. I mean, is that how where we are with this team? You jump a couple passes, and that's again. Where's the chop, Brian? Chop.
I'm not, again, to be clear, I'm not blaming KJ Duff. I think that's a perfect analogy where if I'm listing the people to blame for Rutgers losing this game, KJ Duff is near the bottom, right? But again, when you're at a point where your defense is so bad and your offense increasingly looks like it's KJ Duff, Ian Strong, and then 9 other guys, along with Kelly McManus, you need to come up with those plays, right? You need to come up with those plays to give yourself a chance. I like you in the beginning. You're running out of the care meter. I'm running out of things to say, but again, I'm not blaming KJ Duff. I'm just saying those are kind of plays where he does. He's one of the top 5 in the nation in contested catches. To your point, like he makes hard catches on that drive where he dropped the 29-yard touchdown. Potentially, he made a 4th and 1 conversion 3 plays later. So he moved the ball, and the rest of the offense didn't pick up the slack. But those 2 plays just stick out to me as like if he converts those, if he makes those catches, which he should. As good of a player KJ Duff is, he should make those catches. I don't think we're talking about a different result, but we're talking about probably a different game.
Right. I agree totally. And he wasn't the only star level, top level guy who didn't have a good game. Antoine Raymond, 10 carries, 29 yards. The running game overall, 22 carries, 59 yards. And you see those numbers. If that's the Ohio State's defense, you're like, all right, Illinois' defense is not good. Yeah. And I wonder if that's when you start losing guys on the offensive line, you're plugging guys in. If we're finally seeing where the inadequacies are here, like they're not winning these individual battles necessary to have a good run game in the Big Ten.
That was the other point I was forgetting with the KJ Duff thing. Like this was against one of the worst defenses in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, not quite Rutgers bad, but they're really bad. They were having quite a week after their really bad performance against Washington. The thing is, Rutgers is, yes, they're switching their tackles. They're on their 4th string left tackle. They moved Tyler Needham to right tackle because Taj White was out. Their interior guys, 3 veteran guys, Brian Felter, Gus Zelinskis, and Kobe Asamoah, they're playing, and Rutgers is getting 0 push in the interior as well. They're not gaining tough yards inside. Yeah. It's one thing to have a bad rushing game. They had 2.2 yards per carry, which went up in the 4th quarter when they were kind of just running out the clock. That's their worst clip since they got shut out by Iowa in 2023. Like this it was just a really, really bad performance against a really, really bad defense. And they couldn't run the ball. And then Illinois was playing a lot more man coverage and essentially daring Ethan to throw contested catches, and they were batting them all down. They had 9 pass breakups, right? So that's I can't find game by game stats on that. Those are really hard to find. I can't imagine.
No,
it's been recent that's happened to a Rutgers quarterback, right? So just nothing was working right for the offense. And again, against the bad defense, can you imagine what it's going to be like in Columbus in 3 weeks against the best defense in college football?
No, thanks. All right, let's take some questions from the Discord, from Twitter, from wherever you find us, guys. You want to throw some at the bottom of our YouTube videos. We're everywhere, man. Coordinator questions. Where does Schiano go to fix this defense? What defensive coordinator can he find? Or is it more of getting healthy again for next season, hoping that existing players finally take that next step? I wrote about this after the game, and I think he's going to change coordinators. I think he's already changed coordinators to himself. It's pretty obvious at this point. I think Rob Smith will be a one and done. I don't know about the other guy. I don't know what he does. I like that whole plan. I get it. But I think it's important at this point for Greg Schiano to acknowledge that this didn't work this year. Like trying to find someone specifically who can run his defense, and they will explain to you, if you wanted it, like there's the timeline that happened here, how you ended up back with Rob Smith, the swings and the misses. I understand all of that. Like it's time now to open up a wide search and just find the best coordinator. You spend a lot of money on coaches now. You can afford a top level defensive coordinator and say, here you go. And that might not be your defense. And that might mean you have to turn over some control. That is necessary now. You can't be the CEO of a company and then stocking the shelves. You just can't. Like, and they need Greg Schiano to be the guy on top of this whole thing, to be the CEO. And I just don't like. And this is something we talked about with basketball, Brian, and they didn't do it. We thought they had to bring someone in to bring fresh ideas offensively to on the coaching staff. Steve Pikiell said nope, and that's what you can do when there's no boss. And I just wonder now when these off-season conversations are going to be like, what input Kelly Zinn, what William Tate are going to have in this idea that you got to hire someone from outside your family. You got to leave your comfort zone. There's going to be a lot of turnover there's already a lot of turnover in college coaching. Go to the SEC, go to the ACC, find someone on the way up, find someone with fresh ideas. I don't know who that person is, but you got to find them.
I mean, look back to the last time they did that. Joe Harris-Simiak, I don't think was in the Greg Schiano tree necessarily, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
He was an up and coming guy. He was a head coach at the FCS level. He came in, he brought Corey Heatherman, who obviously we underestimated how important he was to this whole thing. Now that he's the DC at Miami and has been really good in that position after doing so at Minnesota, a guy who, by the way, they tried to hire as their DC and was their number one target this offseason.
Right.
Kind of wild if you want to think about how that would have played out. I think the defense would be much better if he was here. But the point being, it worked last time. Yeah. You got Joe Harris-Simiak. If you could find another Joe Harris-Simiak out there, I know it's much easier said than done to do that, but I think the proof is there that if you don't go back to hiring the same three guys, Rob Smith, Joe Rossi, whoever else is in that pipeline, I mean, it could get worse, certainly, but it could bear some pretty good results too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that at least I hope, and this people ask me, well, is he going to do it? Will he do it? And I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know. I think at this point he recognizes that something's got to change. He's a guy who hasn't been afraid to make changes. I don't know. It'll be fascinating. It's going to be a fascinating offseason for a lot of reasons. And that's a big one. It's a very big one.
I think there's going to be an overhaul, not just who is the coordinator, but I think on the position coaches, right? Like, I just don't think you can return, just change the coordinator and keep these position coaches. Right. I think there's going to be a lot of turnover because naturally you have to when you're this bad. I don't want to speculate on positions, but we've seen which positions have struggled, and you can tell which coaches have been here for a while, which coaches have not shown success, which coaches maybe are here for a year and have really not lived up to any expectations. So I don't know who would be gone, but I think I would be shocked if there's not multiple changes in position coaches and in coordinator. Now, I guess we can talk about this in the offseason. Rob Smith is going to be owed $800,000. That's his salary for next year. Do you keep him on staff and just reassign him, or do you just pull the plug and pay him off and tell him to go to pasture again?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's sort of, yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, is that distracting? Is it more of a distraction than not? I don't know. Could he coach defensive backs? I have no idea. Yeah. Then this is interesting, and I bring this up because, the days of Rutgers operating on the cheap in this realm are over. And 2020 football staff spending, Rutgers was right there with almost even with Penn State. They spent $17 million on coaches. Right?
This was
Are they getting their money's worth? What'd you say?
Year was this?
This is for 2024.
Gotcha.
Penn State's so 28 million total if you include the support staff. And Penn State's right there, 28 million. Are you getting your money's worth on that? I don't know. I mean, it's not like you're not rock bottom in that. It's the one thing Greg Schiano made sure when he came back, they are spending like a Big Ten power.
Right. This is the NCAA report for 24, which would be the 2023 season, I believe.
Right.
To clarify, right? So that was 2 years ago, and I imagine.
I think so. No, wait, 2024 football stat. I don't know. I cut and pasted on my. No, I didn't.
What is your source, Politi?
My source is this graphic I found on the internet. Are you telling me that's wrong? It's AI. Yeah, it's AI. It must be true. AI did it.
Well, let's see.
Still,
Sarge had a story about it. Yes. Okay. So in 2023, they paid their staff $17.8 million. That's the number you had, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 2 years ago. And considering the fact Kirk Shiraka has signed an extension and gotten a bigger salary, considering the fact the coaching staff remains rather large, considering the fact they're still paying 2 defensive coaches as Cody sees a combined $1.4 million, that number is probably still pretty freaking high. So I agree with you that there's unless there is a massive cut in the budget in coaching staffs in order to backfill for NIL and rev share, I agree that Rutgers should be competitive in the defensive coordinator market if and when they get back into it.
All right. Another question. Are we nuts, essentially? And this is from the Discord. And every now and then, someone will go in there and say, oh, have we gotten carried away? If you're an outsider looking in, are we exactly where we're supposed to be? Playing an equally bad Maryland team this week for our 5th win, wild card Penn State game to fight for a bowl berth. I picked the team to go 6-6. So the reader has a point. Do you think that's true? Is this kind of where it's supposed to be? Can you see the point at least? Since obviously we probably disagree with the premise overall.
Yeah, I think if you take a 30,000-foot view, if you look at where the program has been historically, if you look at what the resources they have to compete with the rest of the Big Ten, if you look at it objectively, I don't think it's entirely far off. I think if you watch them play against Iowa, against Minnesota, and see them have a chance in those games and then just completely self-combust in the fourth quarter, and then you watch them get just run out of the building by Oregon and Washington and Illinois, it's hard to take that big picture view because it's not just the fact they lost those games. It's the fact they got destroyed. They weren't competitive. They never even gave themselves a hope. It's one thing to be 4-5 and, be right there with those teams and maybe 1 play or 2 play changes and I give yourself a chance at those kind of upsets. They just had no hope in these games. And I think that as much as the record isn't great, it's the play on the field that's the most concerning. You're in year 6 and you're playing historically bad defense.
Right.
A year after you have another disappointing defense. I just think that's hard to stomach. And maybe it's not entirely fair in the big picture, but I understand why people feel like this. I mean, it is a step back this year. I think we can't argue, no matter what kind of spin, even if they make a bowl game, the way they play this year is a clear step back because they've been really bad.
They did have hope. They did have hope in the Iowa and Minnesota games. If one of those 2 games had gone the other way, certainly it would be a different conversation. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, and you're counting on the win against Maryland, which is certainly Rutgers is favored. And counting on beating Penn State, and they get their own 5 in the Big Ten. Haven't done it since 1988. I mean, if you can pull it off, then yeah, I think this season will be remembered a little differently because of that win, that last win. Hey, we beat Penn State. Hey, we ended that streak of all the things that drive fans crazy. At least you have bragging rights for 1 year, and it doesn't matter that it's the worst Penn State team in a decade. It's fine. You did it. You accomplished it. You beat them. I think that could change a lot of things. But I totally agree with you that, even the outsider looking in kind of has to be able to see this and go, this is not what they wanted or expected.
Rutgers is back at a point where if they play a team that's better than them, you would be surprised if they put in a competitive effort, let alone win the game. Right. That's you can't quantify that. That's a step back. We'll argue about the Penn State stuff in a couple of weeks when they play them, but quick take. Hearing you talk about this, it occurred to me. This is just my opinion entering the game. Beating Penn State won't necessarily be a big win because of how much they suck, but losing to Penn State, and not winning against them and missing out on this opportunity would be a disaster in the sense that you're never going to have a better chance, right? So in our must win to can't lose scale, I think I'm leaning towards the Penn State game being a can't lose, which is insane to say. Let me workshop that take in the last
can't lose. That's good. You have lost like 37 in a row to them. Now they're a can't lose game. Wow, that's amazing.
I don't know if you checked the score, Steve, but they stink. They stink.
Okay. I'm gonna have to give me a couple weeks to bat that one around in my head. I'm not sure I'm there with you yet, but I like it. I like that something. Yeah, it's a little saucy there. It's good. You'd have to carry this show. I already told you I'm tapped, so thank you for carrying it. Okay, it's good. All right. Let's move on because I want to save. I want to make sure we have a good 10 minutes to talk about this very important development involving the president of the university tweeting photos from The Wire. And I don't know if you guys are online, if you're paying attention to what's going on at LSU. It's kind of hard not to pay attention to what's going on at LSU if you're not a college sports fan, because it is batshit crazy. It is funny. I mean, it is like, this is what makes college football different from the NFL. It's the Louisiana governor stepping in for a power play against the LSU AD, saying he'd rather have Donald Trump pick the coach at LSU, leading to like an entire Dan Wetzel podcast. Like, who would Donald Trump pick as LSU president? I mean, it is just funny, crazy shit. And it starts, and we have a tie to it with President Tate. And he, it started with this moment. I don't know if you saw it. Like, I tweeted a photo. I tweeted at the president with one of these crazy news stories. I said, I'm wondering if at Bill Tate is thinking that.
Sorry, Politi, I kicked you out. My bad. What a disaster.
Yeah. Okay. So I put it at first. The first one was, and he tweeted a photo of him back at me. He's like, I bet you he's happy to be in New Jersey right now. He tweeted a photo with him and the Rizzler back at me, which is hilarious. Like, and they're both pointing at the camera, and I'm like, I think that's my answer. But then put up the other photo. This is what he did yesterday or last week. And after Scott Woodward gets fired, he puts up a photo, and if you're a fan of The Wire, and I would describe it to you if you're listening on Apple, this is a photo of Omar from The Wire and brother Mouzone. Is that how you pronounce it? Mouzone. They're coming in to kill Stringer Bell. This is the scene. They have united. These are two guys that were screwed by Stringer Bell in season 3. One of the great scenes in TV history when they kill Stringer at the construction site.
Spoiler
it's just
alert.
Great stuff. What?
Spoiler alert? There are people that might have not watched The Wire.
It's 20 years old. I think it's too
out.
late. There's no spoiler. We'll be spoiling The Godfather. Sonny gets on the boat. If you want me to spoil some other movies for you here, come on. E.T. goes home. I'm sorry. I can't. We can't. This shit happens. It's So he just throws this out there. William Tate just drops this photo onto the internet, and people, I mean, every college football expert in America is retweeting it, saying this is great. This is great tweets, legendary. Oh my God. Everyone's flipping out about it. But of course, though, and there's the first one. I
just want to acknowledge the Rizzler. That's
one. The Rizzler, him and the Rizzler. Yeah, that's how happy he is. But we didn't have the explanation for this. And this is what I loved about it, because then I tweeted back at him, hey, Prez, you're in Jersey now. Maybe you should use this one. And it was a photo from The Sopranos before they killed Big Pussy on the boat. I thought that maybe that's more appropriate now. You're in New Jersey. And Bill Tate comes back and he says, the plot doesn't fit in that photo. Love the Sopranos, but that doesn't fit. And that led me down a rabbit hole. I'm trying to figure out what makes this photo appropriate for what he's trying to say. And I love it. He's not going to tell us. If it's one of these, if you know, you know. And I will admit, having watched The Wire, one of my favorite shows, that I'm not sure I know. So I come to you, Brian. Do you think, because my theory was Stringer Bell, Scott Woodward. But you have a different theory now. After doing some of your own research and reporting, you think there's another interpretation of this.
So first of all, I do love that everyone is like, oh my God, what an epic tweet. Just one of the best tweets of college sports. And not a single person was like, this is why it's epic, because it means this. No one knows what it means. I think everyone's kind of just like, wow, a university president is tweeting out a clip from or a screenshot from The Wire. That's awesome, which I agree with. But I would love to see one person explain this to me, because I don't get it. I don't get it. Here is the basic. We have to agree on these premises, right? So there are 3 characters in this. Yeah. At least in this scenario, it could if you want to expand this to the entire Wire universe and Louisiana politics, we can make an entire 10-part podcast series on this. But right. So let's just agree on the basics here. There is Omar. I almost said Omar Cooper. There's Omar. There is Brother Mouzone. and there is Stringer Bell.
Correct.
In Louisiana, there is Scott Woodward.
The
There
AD.
is the governor.
Right.
I don't think Brian Kelly is in this equation necessarily.
It could be, but I don't think so either. It's feasible that he is.
One of them has to be William Tate, right? Because if he's going to tweet out this screenshot, he must be involved, right?
Could be.
Right. Is this him signaling that he had some part in this? Is he like Prop Joe? Was Prop Joe involved in this? I can't. My wire timing is all funky. Who made these two come together to kill
this is the interesting part. If you did follow season 3, Avon Barksdale gives up Stringer Bell's location, right, and that's how they come get him. So in this next scene, Omar tells Stringer that your boy ratted you out, meaning Avon, and that's when Stringer knows the game's over, essentially. And one of the great lines is like, "Get on with it already," before he gets shot. Again,
who is Avon Barksdale? This is what I'm saying. This is The Wire. The Wire is one of the great, most intricately woven TV shows of all time, and that just makes this so much harder. And the other thing is, Louisiana politics is a cesspool that, after spending hours trying to figure it out, I can't. I mean, that place is an absolute marsh.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the fun in all this, is that we'll never know.
Yeah. And you can imagine, so like, there was a moment I'm like, you know what? I'm going to send an email to university PR. You can imagine, like, hi, and they get immediately when my name pops up in university PR email, I can only imagine it's like, oh God, no, please, no, not him. After everything with the Hop stuff and the number of emails I sent regarding that, but I can only imagine. I'd like to speak to President Tate. He'd be like, oh, what would you like to talk to him about? Perhaps, some stuff about what's going on at the new campuses, U.S. News and World Report rankings. You want to get some details about? No, I want to talk to him about season 3 of The Wire. And if he's Omar in the scenario, the governor is Stringer Bell. I'm going to see him. If I run into him at the Maryland game, I'm going to get to them. I'm not done reporting this story.
This is the investigative journalism that we get paid for, and that people are dying to know.
I don't know if anyone's dying to know it or not.
I know you are.
I am. That's enough, right?
Look, I think this is fun. I think it would be best if the mystery just kind of hangs out there.
You like it. You like not knowing.
It's kind of like the ending of The Sopranos. Just we can kind of figure out what it means, but we'll never know definitively unless. That's the fun. It's just kind of knowing but not knowing.
Yeah, Tony's dead. That's the ending of that show. All right, and I will say this: like, it is fun to have. Can you imagine? This president is more interesting than the last. I don't know how far back you go. Yeah, I mean, certainly he's just got a different kind of personality. He does not give a shit, and it's it's what he said to me when I talked to him. Like, what are they gonna do? Fire me? He's like, I don't think so, President. You've been here for like 20 minutes. I don't think they're gonna fire you yet. It was like just stuff like that. He's just kind of like a loose cannon. It's very funny, and to be on Twitter at 11 p.m. on whatever night, Friday night, it's just great. It is. It's funny.
I saw him having a Twitter exchange with a couple of Rutgers people about like the greatest college basketball teams of the last 50 years. And
yeah.
The guy knows ball. The guy talks ball. The guy gets in on some memes. Time will tell about how his university presidency will run out, and more important things, obviously. But as far as a poster goes, he is undoubtedly the greatest Rutgers president as a poster online. By a million miles.
Yeah, I want to see some shit posting too. I want to see it get to if Rutgers gets good again. I want to see if that'd be hilarious. Play LSU in some bowls someday. All right, we got some other what else here, and it's we're Kyle Monungai. I think people who followed Rutgers football who were not surprised by this. The best way to put it. Like, I honestly thought he was going to be a good NFL player. I am surprised to see it rookie season, November 2nd, 176 yards on 26 carries. I mean, that is a pretty damn good game in your rookie year when you weren't the starter coming in. You're a fill-in essentially in that game. Got the game ball in the locker room and got the game ball. And he like, again, if you were around him, you followed this program, how he's good at this stuff. And he just looked like, like a veteran who's been around for 100 years, gave a great speech. There's a video of it. Congratulations to him. And I drafted him in my fantasy football league, but like an idiot cut him because I'm not good at fantasy football.
You gave up too early.
I didn't have enough roster room. I had I had injuries. I couldn't. It's just I don't want to go there. I'm disappointed in myself.
It's okay. No one wants to hear about your fantasy football team anyway. He had 4 missed tackles forced, which is pretty good. Very on brand for Kyle Monangai.
Yep.
I did like his speech. He's saying like, I told you guys I'd step up and I did. I love that confidence. Happy for Kyle. Great representative of the program. Obviously, really enjoyed talking to him during over the years when he was the best player on the team. I guess just to wrap up the point from the beginning of the podcast about where Rutgers is as a athletic department, right? I don't think it's a great sign that the only real peaks of joy and excitement that Rutgers fans are getting nowadays is seeing what their former players are doing at the professional level. Kyle Monangai, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey. People are getting joy out of how they're playing there because the team currently, both of them stink.
Right. I will say both of those guys, though, are a great advertisement for the university, especially Kyle. I mean, they cannot get enough of him, put him out there. That helped having those guys, the Knights in the NFL the first time around, helped the program. I think it will again. He is now taking that mantle from the Devin McCourtys of the world, and it's good. That's a good thing. They need it. But watching Dylan Harper is going to be tough. I will say that it's going to be a little.
Again, it's just a reminder of what they didn't do with those guys. And Kyle Monangai, obviously to a lesser extent, they did go 7-6 with him there 2 years in a row. You're not going to win 9 games because of a running back. I'm not saying that. Obviously, the impact is much bigger on basketball when you had those 2 guys. But I just don't. It's nice when your former athletes are performing well at the professional level and people can get excited about that. That should not be the prime reason for people to get excited. It should be a supplement. It should be an appetizer, not the main course.
All right. We're going to come back. Let's end there. We're going to come back and do a basketball podcast where you, Brian Fonseca, are going to tell me why I'm going to get excited about this basketball team. That's going to be your challenge. You are. That's right. You're going to do it. You're going to tell me. You're going to do it. I'm going to demand it from you in the next segment. Get ready, folks. We're going to talk some hoops. Thanks for listening to this one. We'll be back to preview the Maryland game with a guest later in the week. But first, some hoops.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant, sponsored by the Heldrich Hotel. Head to nj.com/Rutgers for more Scarlet Knight content.